Just to introduce you to HDK, we are a digital agency that provides websites, marketing, and design services to arts and cultural organisations like yourselves. We work with clients including Arts Council England, the Barbican, Garden Museum, and Birmingham Royal Ballet, among many others. Okay, brilliant. With everyone here, I'm going to go into introductions. So welcome everyone. I'm Bella. I'll be hosting the session today, along with our speakers, Fizz and Linus. I am a white woman in my 20s with shoulder length, wavy brown hair. Today I'm wearing a grey jumper, and my pronouns are she, her. I work in digital marketing at HDK, and I'll pass over to Linus.
Hi, my name's Linus. I'm the web support manager here at HDK. It's been a couple of years since that photo was taken. I have since lost all of my hair. But I am a white man in my early 30s. I'm wearing glasses and I have a blue hoodie on today. Pass you on over to Fizz.
Hi everyone, I'm Fizz. I'm also part of the digital marketing team at HDK. I'm a white woman in my mid-20s with brown eyes. I've also lost a bit of hair, short brown hair now. And today I'm wearing a white fluffy cardigan with some red details on.
Lovely, thank you all. So today we're going to be talking about sustainability in digital marketing. And when we say sustainability, we're definitely going to focus on the environmental impact of digital marketing, green tips and techniques for your online activity. But we're also talking about sustainability in the sense of responsibility and social and ethical impact. So today we're talking about why sustainability matters in digital marketing, touching on sustainable storytelling online with regard to your social media content and your strategies, your web design and development, and also inclusive and ethical marketing and how you build trust and connection with your audiences. And with that, I'm going to pass on to Fizz, who will take the reins on this section.
Thanks, Bella. We're going to start with the environmental impact of digital marketing. Audiences are increasingly expecting organizations to act responsibly, not just to talk about sustainability. We're seeing that they want to know that you're making real actions that are moving towards carbon reduction, greener practices, and transparency. Your digital channels are one of the most visible ways that you can communicate your values and ethics, including sustainability. So, how we tell this story really matters. Now, I'm guessing most of you are here because you're wanting to make your digital marketing more sustainable and believe that it's the right thing to do, or at least I would hope so. But if you're not convinced yet as to why you should, I've got some stats to share with you all. So I'll preface this by saying that from my research, the figures can vary quite wildly, but all the following stats I've got from the most reputable sources I could find. So a quick starter poll to get us in the mood for today's session. I want you to have a guess at how many grams of CO2 do you think the average person's social media use produces each year? And so a poll will come up on the screen and you can choose from 4 options. I'll give you maybe 30 seconds to have a quick guess. Okay, fab. So I'm interested to know what you all said. Oh, okay, I can see the answers. 100,000 was the most popular, interesting. Then 57, then 353,000, and then 12,000. Okay, you've taken your guess. The answer was 353,466 grams. And for context, that's about the same as flying from London to Athens. To put it in a slightly different way, Carbon Literacy has calculated that the average time we spend on social media per day, which is around 145 minutes, emits almost as much CO2 as driving from London to Edinburgh in a small car. And you've probably heard of these, but maybe never seen one. This is a data centre. The University of Edinburgh suggests that data centres supporting our social media activity account for a carbon footprint equivalent of the entire airline industry. So the impact of digital activity might be surprising, And every like, comment, and share adds to this carbon production. And that's not all. I've only touched on social media there, but of course, as digital marketers, you've got the use of the internet, newsletters and emails, virtual meetings, and everyone's favorite topic, AI. None of which you'll be surprised to know are particularly great for the planet. So, what can you do about it? I'm going to be focusing on social media and content first, and then Linus will share more about how to lower your website carbon emissions. So maybe some of you have heard of this term low carbon content strategies, or maybe not. But I'm going to look at how you can action this and bring this into your marketing at whatever organization you're with. So first, you want to consider your content volume and format. Think about auditing your posts and your newsletters, and you could audit your blogs as well. Do you really need to create something new, or could you update existing content? Ask yourself, how much content do we put out? Think about the whole spectrum of content that you're sharing. And when you're looking at this, what really worked? And maybe what actually wasn't needed with hindsight. I think we're all guilty, including myself, of sometimes rushing to put out mediocre content because we feel that we need to, rather than waiting until we have something great to share. And finally, does the majority of your content take high amounts of energy to produce and consume? E.g., long videos, heavy animations, really heavily designed newsletters, or super high-res images. A tip here is to audit using your analytics. They're there to help you, and look at what's not getting good engagement. If you're uploading long videos that actually don't get many views, not many likes, think about limiting how often you share this style of content and switch it out to a more compressed short form video style. By auditing and having a clear understanding of where your content lies on the scale of carbon use, from very small to huge amounts, you'll have a much better idea of small changes you can make to help lower your carbon impact. Ideally, you'd post less frequently, but with more meaningful content. My next tip is, where possible, to batch create your assets. So say that you work in a museum and you hire a photographer to capture an event on site. Whilst this photographer is in the building, make the most out of the session. Don't create content for just one post. Ensure that your photography brief is comprehensive enough to cover future newsletter features, blog pictures, and multiple social media posts. Generally speaking, the more strategic and greater depth of planning you can do to make sure less content is wasted, the greener your content creation will be. So, ad strategy is another really interesting area to consider. Fewer, more targeted ads are better than many scattered campaigns. Specific targeting reduces unnecessary impressions, which lowers energy consumption, and using analytics to eliminate underperforming ads ensures that no energy is wasted on content that doesn't deliver value. I'm not going to go super in depth now on the ways that you can improve your ad targeting, but HGK have quite a few really useful tools available for you to view on the topic, including a webinar recording from earlier this year that I recommend, and Bella's going to pop that link in the chat if you're interested in watching that. So speaking of targeting, did you know that if you share your content at the time when your audience is most active, your posting schedule will actually be more carbon efficient? This is because, in theory, you should target your audience more immediately, reducing the number of wasted impressions. Otherwise, the algorithm might try to compensate by resharing your content at a later time, resulting in repeated and unnecessary data transfers and processing. And final subject here from me, or topic from me. Linus is also going to talk about this later. But AI, we all know it can be really useful, but it also comes with a very high carbon cost. Training and running AI models requires significant power, which consumes energy and increases emissions. So as marketers, it's really worth asking, is the content we're creating with AI, especially if it's image creation, do we need it? Or could we actually create something authentic ourselves? Could we repurpose or optimize existing content instead? And how can we make it human again in order to limit those carbon emissions? I think that this is especially important now that platforms are being launched and tested by AI giants, such as Sora. You might have already heard of it, but it's basically OpenAI's social media app, which only shares AI-generated content. And this is currently only available in the US, but I'm sure that it won't be long before it makes its way over here. So perhaps as arts organizations and as marketers, we need to think about the moral use of this kind of content and sustainable use of this kind of content, but also about protecting the art and creativity that we promote. So just to summarize my section, I wanted to share this quote from Jane Goodall, who, if you're not sure who she is, then look her up. She's actually best known for her work with chimpanzees, so not much to do with the arts. But she was also a very big advocate for the planet. And I think this quote from her sums up really nicely just how your everyday small actions might not always appear to be part of the bigger picture. And I know that obviously the arts is only one sector in such a huge ecosystem, but small changes can really make a difference. So if you're looking to make some future mindful changes to lower your carbon impact while you're working on your digital marketing, here are a few quick ideas. You could reduce your email templates so they're not heavily designed. Think minimalist over maximalist. Make sure that your social content and your strategy allows for quality over quantity. And think twice about whether you need that video meeting with your colleagues, because joining with audio only actually lessens the carbon impact by up to 96%. So I'm now going to pass over to Linus, who's going to talk more about your website.
Thank you, Fist. It's very illuminating. So I'm just going to touch on your websites. And just, I mean, the first part I'm going to talk about is how they even consume energy. So websites, they use energy in lots of small hidden ways. So these are things like every database query, every third-party script, every uncached request, every animation or autoplay video, and even the layout rendering work that will happen on the user's device. All of these processes consume energy. And this happens every time somebody loads a page. And all of this happens instantly in the background. So, servers run continuously, content travels across global networks, and devices have to process everything that you include. So that means that a single oversized image or unnecessary script, it might be tiny, but if you multiply this by thousands of page views, it becomes a measurable part of your website's carbon footprint. So, what can you do about it? I mean, one of the simplest ways to reduce that footprint is to make your website lighter. And the good news is that a sustainable website is also a website that is faster and more accessible. So this includes things like compressing images or using modern formats like WebP, removing these unused scripts and avoiding autoplay video unless it's genuinely needed. And all of these make an immediate impact. And lighter pages, they load more quickly, they improve user experience for people on slow connections, and they'll even reduce bounce rates. And performance optimization is not only about speed. Every kilobyte removed means less data is transferred, which directly reduces energy required to load your pages. And this is where sustainability and usability, they really go hand in hand. But you should also consider the foundations of your website. So before anyone even visits your site, your infrastructure choices really set the baseline of the carbon impact. So your hosting environment that's going to run 24/7. So the energy mix and efficiency of that infrastructure affect every single page load, and it's the foundation of sustainable web practice. So Cloud Above is a very good example of what this looks like in practice. So they are our hosting partner here at HDK, and they run entirely on renewable energy. They use modern, efficient servers, and they include built-in caching and optimization tools that reduce unnecessary data transfer. And they also support a tree planting initiative as part of their environmental commitment. And this efficient infrastructure, that's going to lower your emissions before you've actually optimized anything that sits on your website itself. So choosing the sustainable infrastructure, it gives you a cleaner starting point. It reduces the carbon footprint of your website automatically, like I said, long before you compress images or update content. And it is probably the best and simplest and most impactful step that you can take. And another thing is hidden digital waste. So a lot of waste produced by websites is invisible to most teams. So these includes things like abandoned plugins, old tracking scripts, redundant fonts, oversized PDFs, or video files, you know, that are stored on your server. And these add weight without actually delivering any sort of value. So cleaning up this digital clutter, it not only improves performance and security, but it also reduces the carbon footprint of every single page load. And it is, again, one of the more simple and effective ways that you can make your digital presence more sustainable without changing any content or design. And if you're on WordPress, which I think a lot of you will be, have a look at your media gallery. How big is it? As a WordPress professional and as someone who migrates a lot of websites, I would consider a large WordPress media gallery to be anything larger than 5 GB. So if you're larger than that, then it's probably worth going through that media gallery and seeing where you can delete things. So just to wrap this section up, websites use energy in lots of small hidden ways, but there are very clear steps that you can take to reduce that impact. So making your site lighter through image optimization, modern formats, and removing unnecessary scripts will immediately cut energy use and will improve user experience. Choosing efficient, renewable first hosting means that you start from a cleaner baseline before you've done anything else. And keeping your site tidy by removing digital clutter reduces waste, it improves security, and it lowers your footprint over time. So in short, lighter websites, cleaner infrastructure, and less digital waste will all add up. And these small decisions at every stage will make your site faster, more accessible, and far more sustainable. And just a little question for the audience here before we move on to the next section of the webinar. I guess I'd love to know what tips so far or fact has stood out to you the most, or what will you be taking away from this session? I'll just let you put something in the chat there. Yeah, absolutely. Backend clutter. And I'm gonna reiterate on this. Have a look at your WordPress media gallery because I've just this year I've maybe we've taken on websites where the media gallery sits at upwards of like 20, 30 gig, which is an insane number. So definitely ask your own hosting provider how much is actually sat in there.
I like the question about how we reduce the carbon impact of webinars. Excellent question. Well, actually, we have got a new format of our webinars, which I'm guessing might be more sustainable because, I mean, sadly, not everyone's allowed to have their camera on anymore, but potentially that helps. Lots of good answers about social media. I think that social media often goes under the radar in terms of how much carbon it produces. But actually, it's possibly for some people the thing that we're on the most, and therefore we are actually emitting lots of carbon by using it. That's a good question about anything to declutter social media. I think that you can definitely delete old posts, and you don't have to keep everything up in the same way with your website that you would have a refresh and that you would remove old pages. With social media, you can declutter in that way too. Obviously, takes a little bit of time. Okay, we're going to move on to the next section now. Thank you everyone for your answers. Great. So far we've looked at sustainability in terms of carbon and environmental impact. But as Bella mentioned at the start of the session, it's not just about the planet. It's also about people, communities, and ethical practices. So how we communicate, represent, and engage with our audiences is just as important as reducing our digital footprint. So to round off today's webinar, we've got some final tips for you, less focused on being green and more about making sure that your marketing also works well into the future.
Thanks, Fez. So I just want to touch on ethics in web development. I mean, that's really about the impact of the systems that we create. So this isn't just about code. It's about how our decision shapes people's experiences when they use your website. So this means, I mean, for example, it means giving people a genuine, clear consent choices rather than forcing them through confusing cookie banners. I think we've all had that experience where you can't quite find the reject all button and just how frustrating that is. And it means designing these interactions that people have on your websites that respect users instead of nudging them into something that they didn't choose. And ethics is also about recognizing who's going to get excluded. So people on older devices, slower networks, or with specific access needs, these are often the users that are the first to hit barriers. So part of our responsibility is making sure that the technology we build doesn't leave anyone behind. And if accessibility is something that you would want to dive deeper into, we do have a dedicated webinar on maintaining accessibility linked on our site. And I think Bella's going to paste it in the chat now as well, if you're interested in that.
So in a similar vein to what Linus was just saying, but this time more focused around your strategy, you want to avoid deceptive or manipulative tactics. Even small exaggerations can really erode trust and are unsustainable long term. So try and focus on honest messaging, communicate your organization's mission and values, sustainability efforts and claims clearly, and make sure that you are compliant with advertising standards and greenwashing rules. You don't want to be in a position where you're making claims that you actually can't back up with proof.
Yeah, exactly. And I just want to touch on data real quick. So as I mentioned before, sustainable digital practice is not only just about writing clean, efficient code, it also includes how we collect, store, and manage data. And these principles, they're pretty simple. Number one, collect only what you genuinely need. Number two, keep third-party scripts to an absolute minimum. Number three, make sure your cookie banner actually controls your cookies instead of just pretending to. And avoid collecting data silos or storing personal information for longer than necessary. So this good data practice, it doesn't only just reduce risk, but it reduces digital waste and it builds long-term trust with your audiences. And it's about running lean, transparent systems that actually respect people's privacy. And I can't do one of these webinars without touching on AI. So AI tools, love them or hate them, they're actually a day-to-day part of digital work now. But obviously, they do come with some challenges. One of the main ones is bias. So they can introduce bias and they can produce inaccurate content. And they can blur the lines of where the content actually came from. So when using AI to generate or personalize experiences, everything still needs to be validated by a human. Because models are trained on all of these huge data sets, any biases in these sets, and there are lots of them, let's not mince our words here, they're going to show up in the output. And whilst AI can automate certain tasks, it shouldn't be making decisions that meaningfully affect your users. And I think the most sustainable and ethical use of AI is as a support tool. It's helping with accessibility, it's helping with efficiency and consistency, but it is not replacing human judgment.
So my final piece of advice for this webinar is that you should think about long-term relationships over short-term wins. So as I was mentioning earlier, focus on that trust and loyalty, not just one-off campaigns or viral moments. A viral TikTok, for example, might be really exciting at the time, but you could end up really rapidly gaining momentum before you lose it all and realize that none of the viewers for that viral second have actually stuck around. And in our case, that might mean that they're not actually buying any tickets to the show. They're not coming into your gallery. They just had a quick laugh at a video for 10 seconds. So instead of aiming for quick success, take the time to build digital strategies that will help you reap rewards well into the future. Ethical, inclusive, and audience-aware marketing builds sustainable relationships, which is the ultimate measure of marketing sustainability.
Thanks, Biz. And as I mentioned earlier, accessibility and sustainability, they are very closely linked. So accessible sites, they tend to be cleaner, lighter, and better structured, which naturally reduces digital waste. So these are things like semantic HTML, alt text, color contrast, keyboard navigation, reduced motion options, and sort of strong performance practices. They all contribute to a site that works for more people. And when accessibility is built in from the very beginning, like we do here at HDK, you can avoid costly rebuilds later. So it's not just a compliance task, it's a sustainability strategy as well. So I'm just going to expand on this last point here a little bit. Sustainability is also about building systems that last. So constant redevelopment, it creates unnecessary digital waste. And I think that goes without saying. Future-proofing will involve clean code, clear structure, and reusable components that avoid a dependency sprawl. And it means keeping your CMS tidy, documented, and secure. And it means thinking about performance and accessibility from day one. They're essentially the same thing, performance, accessibility, and sustainability. When these systems are built to last, they stay maintainable for years rather than months. And that reduces costs, it reduces effort, and it lowers the environmental impact of your digital presence over the long term.
Thank you to Linus and Fizz for everything there. Some really interesting tips and facts and some things that I didn't know as well. We had a quick question about the exact stats. So carbon literacy calculated the average time we spend on social media per day, around 145 minutes, and it's the same CO2 as driving from London to Edinburgh in a small car. So we can put that in the comments as well in a bit. But just to round up what we've spoken about today, I think some key points there are thinking about quality over quantity for your content, and I see some comments around that, so we can go in and touch on that in the Q&A. Thinking long term in terms of how you're building your audiences online, not chasing the virality if that's not one of your key goals. Using AI wisely, and also thinking about accessibility, because accessibility and sustainability are intertwined. I think one of the most important things I'm taking away from today is to be conscious and to be considerate of the environmental impact of your digital footprint as an organization. And I think just by being aware of it and attending a webinar like this, you're already putting in more thought than others might be doing in terms of your environmental impact. So keep conscious and be considerate with how you're using online content and your website, and that will make a difference. I'd love to share our next few webinars in the coming months. So in December, we're talking about digital marketing trends for 2026. Every year, our whole team comes together and pulls their thoughts as to what's happened this year and what we think will be a trend for next year in terms of websites and digital marketing in the arts. So it's a great one, sometimes Christmassy. Do come to that. In January, we'll be talking about writing a website brief and the roadmap to achieving that. And in February, we're discussing the future of social media for arts marketing. So I'll pop the link where you can access all of those in the chat as well. Yeah. As well, we've got our newsletter, which we send out monthly with marketing tips, industry insights, case studies, and updates from our team. So do sign up to that on our website as well. Great. I think we have a little bit of time for a Q&A, so we'll probably spend around 10 to 15 minutes on this. I know that we've got already some questions in the chat, which we can go back to. So I'll go back to those and read them out. If anyone has any other questions that come up as we're discussing, please put those in the comments as well. So one question, which actually Patricia's already responded to in the chat, but we can maybe discuss here, is that the amount of carbon we produce through social media activity, it clashes with advice I was given on a recent marketing course, which suggested posting very often to get traction with followers. So I think this is a really interesting one in terms of, the goals that you have for digital marketing, and sometimes those goals will clash. I don't know if Fiz, maybe you want to touch on a few things there.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point because a lot of these algorithms do work by and promote people who are posting regularly and are very consistent. However, I think I saw a stat of 5 times a day, and I do think that, especially for people working in the arts, where we are quite regularly struggling for resources and perhaps we don't have loads of time always. I think 5 times a day is probably too much. If sustainability is a big part of your ethos as an organization and what you believe in, I would suggest that you do always try and go for quality over quantity. And I think I would say max you want to post once or twice a day. If you are able to do that and you have really great quality posts. But it is always a balance between being sustainable, but doing what your strategy focuses on and also representing your organization in the best way. And so you need to juggle both. And I would try and find somewhere in the middle for you if you did want to post quite regularly.
Yeah. I'd also add to that, quality posts will likely get better engagement for you. So, if you're posting every day for the sake of it, and you don't have great content to be sharing, but you've been told that posting more is the right way to reach your followers, and that's what gets you traction. But actually, it's not content that's interesting to your followers. It's not something that people will want to engage with, and therefore, the algorithm sees that, and they won't share it to as many people. So do be conscious of, in terms of what Fiz is saying about quality over quantity, it's also about the best way to engage your followers and have that sustainable long-term approach.
I also really like what Catherine said in the chat, which is that where she is, they've actually reduced the number of channels as well as reducing the number of posts overall. And I think that there was a time when we felt like we had to be on every single social media channel possible. But actually, it's quite refreshing to see people stepping away from certain platforms or saying, actually, no, we're going to focus on 2 or 3 and do them really well. And I think that's a great strategy.
Thanks, Fiz. Andy's asked, how do people find out the size of their WordPress media library? A great question for Linus.
That is a great question. And it kind of depends on what admin privileges you have. But me, as the site admin, I would go to tools, then I would go to site health, and then info, and then directories and sizes. I'm just on our website here. We are HDK, and our uploads directory is actually 5.8 gigabytes, which is, I'll have to do something about that. But again, if you don't have the correct admin privileges, just reach out to your hosting provider, and they should be able to give you an answer in a couple of minutes. It's not hard to figure out. So that's where I'd go.
Thanks, Linus. Okay, Catherine asks, is there a tool for social media that's similar to the website carbon calculator for websites? And well, I haven't actually used any of these. There are definitely a few out there, so I don't know if anyone's able to put in the chat if you have used one of these before. And Fizz, feel free to jump in if you know a bit more about these.
So the only ones that I have used are actually more about understanding your own social media usage. So there are websites, you can just type in social media calculator where you can input the minutes per day that you spend on each social media, and then it will spit out a stat to you and tell you how much social media or how much carbon you're producing through your own personal use. In terms of actually quantifying how much a social media page is using, I haven't found a great tool for that, or at least I don't know of one. So if anybody else has used one, I would love to know.
Silvana asks, is it possible to send this recording to have this recording sent to us, please? Absolutely, Silvana. It will be available on our website in the next couple of days, and I believe it will also be sent directly to you on email. Okay. Have we got any other questions? Feel free to pop those in the chat.
I think there was a question from Jamie as well. Would archiving those social media posts have a lesser impact? Thinking from an archiving perspective, I wanted to keep a bank of the company's history, but still lightening the load. I'm going to answer this from a website perspective, especially WordPress. So, as everyone should know, WordPress is a blogging platform, and it gives you the functionality to write blogs and then post them, and then they just live there forever, which from a sustainability perspective probably isn't good. So if you do have lots of blog posts on your website, it's maybe worth going through them and seeing how many people actually read them. So using a tool like Google Analytics or something, and then you can go through the ones that people, that they don't get any interaction with people. You can probably get rid of those. And then, as far as, keeping a bank of the company's history, an About Us page can probably do that a lot better than a bunch of different posts.
In terms of social media specifically, as far as I've understood, a lot of the environmental emission, the carbon emissions, comes from the act of posting and having people view that. And so similar to what Linus was saying about having a page, for example, be viewed by a lot of different people. So I'm not 100% certain that deleting everything from your archive will have a big impact, but it could help in terms of storage on those social media servers, in terms of the platforms themselves. But if you did want to create a new archive of your content, creating on an internal folder system might also be a helpful solution for that. And that also means that you avoid the having to post everything just to keep it as an archive.
Yeah, just to add to that, it's worth saying again that it is the kind of active use of social media that causes the most carbon emissions. However, platforms like YouTube, for example, if you're storing really long videos on there, they are taking up storage space. And, if that's being viewed only once or twice a year, for example, maybe a little bit more, deleting those does free up that storage and helps reduce those emissions slightly. So it's not going to make it as big an impact as using social media less, but it's still a small tip to help.
Great. I think that is all the questions that I'm seeing as I scroll back. If anyone has another question, feel free to pop that in the chat just now, or to send it to us on email as well. More than happy to help out. hello@wearehdk.com. Otherwise, thank you everyone so much for joining. I think it's been a really helpful session, and I've learned a lot myself. So I want to say a big thank you for everyone to everyone for joining us, and thank you to Fizz and Linus for sharing all these tips with us. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.